Hey guys, my name is Alyssa. I'm a leadership and high performance coach and a Harvard psychology grad. And today I want to talk about why people are not happy at work. And this might apply to you if you don't feel happy at work, or it might apply to employees that you have that might not be feeling so happy at work either. So actually, we have good data on this, and we know that only 33% of the population is engaged at work. 52% of the population describes themselves as just showing up, and 17% actively dislike their jobs. So I really believe that everyone should really have the opportunity to have a job that they do love and they enjoy. We spend so much of our time at work, and so much of those hours that add up in our lives are spent at work, that we really all as humans deserve to have a job in which we feel engaged in. But how do we actually create jobs that are meaningful and enjoyable to human beings? Well, currently, I would argue we're really good at creating jobs that are not meaningful and are not enjoyable to human beings. We're doing a lot of things wrong, and this is shown in the data, in that only 33% of people are enjoying their jobs. So how do we make jobs more enjoyable? One of the things that's really, really important, one component for a person to enjoy their jobs is for them to feel like they have a high level of trust in the organization and in their fellow employees and in their fellow coworkers and in their managers. So I recently read a book about this by neuroscientist Paul Zak named The Trust Factor. And what he does is he lays out a framework for creating organizations and workplaces with a high trust factor. And he found that increasing trust really increases people being more engaged in their jobs. So people that are working in organizations with more trust, they are 76% more engaged, they are 50% more productive, and they are 50% more likely to stay. In addition, people who work in high trust organizations typically have a 22% increase in profitability in the entire organization. So investing in trust really pays off. It doesn't just make people feel good, it actually has a huge ROI. So what Paul Zak does is he creates a framework that really shows us how to create these organizations of trust and how to make people enjoy their jobs more and also make companies more profitable and give them that competitive advantage. So the framework that he creates is the acronyms spell out oxytocin. For him, that is the neurotransmitter that he has studied that he thinks is most crucial in developing trust and creating human bonds and kind of making us feel good and safe. So with each letter of the word oxytocin, there is a principle that he encourages companies to adopt or individuals to adopt from kind of a ground up level to create organizations that are more enjoyable to work in. So the first is O for Ovation. And what Ovation stands for here is that people really need to feel appreciated. And that doesn't just mean, kind of the parking spot that every employee gets, the special parking spot that every employee gets, or a plaque on the wall that everybody gets. But people need to feel appreciated in specific ways. So, when somebody does a good job on a particular project, that needs to be addressed and applauded. People need to feel like they're valued and that other people care about the work they do. We're very social creatures, and this is important to us. All right, so the second one is expectation, and he actually uses the X in expectation to create the oxytocin model. And so one of the most important things for us humans is to have challenges that really meet our level of expertise. So what this means is that we often don't feel great when a challenge is beyond our skill level, like vastly beyond our skill level. And we often don't feel great when a challenge is really below our skill level. We often kind of find that type of work really menial. So it is important to craft roles and responsibilities in which a person feels really kind of optimally challenged. So something's hard, but not so hard that somebody doesn't even know how to do it. And if you're feeling like, you're really bored at work, it might mean that you're not getting these types of challenges that you really need for kind of optimal psychological functioning. So the next one is yield. So it's really important to have autonomy in a workplace, and for individuals to really have control over their work. People need to actually feel like they have authority over their decisions, and really kind of like this type of micromanaging that people might have heard of or experienced. And micromanaging really diminishes this feeling of autonomy. And as we know, autonomy is one of the basic psychological needs. People need to feel like they have control over their work and over their lives, and people need to feel like they have the authority to take decisions without having to ask for every single little thing. So if you feel like, you don't really have control over how your work goes, or you feel like you're always kind of being interrupted by new mandates, new kind of top-down commands, and it feels really frustrating to you, it might be that your work really lacks autonomy. All right, so the next one is and it's openness. And this is really important in creating a culture of trust, because secrets and kind of, clandestine meetings really make people feel bad, and it doesn't create a good positive working environment, and it is really counterproductive to the productivity of the team. And honestly, it just doesn't feel good to think that other people are talking about things behind your back, or that there's information that could have been useful to you that you were excluded from knowing. All right, so the next one is caring. And sometimes this is not really a word that we think of when we think of a workplace or a business, but it is really important to remember that employees are humans, and that as a worker, you are a human and you kind of have human needs. You're not a human resource, you are a human person. And as a human person, you kind of have a lot of complexity and a lot of facets to your personality. You are not just kind of the output of your work. And so it is really important to have kind of caring bonds in an organization in which people actually have friendships, in which they actually truly care about each other as human beings, and have that social connection, and to feel like you're actually working in a team, and that these are other people that have your back and you guys are moving towards a goal together. And in relation to this, we have the next part of the framework, and that is I for invest. And it's really important for people to feel like they are growing and being invested in by their organizations. People do not naturally like to stagnate. That is not kind of like our psychological baseline. People do want to grow and they want to get better at things. And when an organization addresses that and knows what people actually want to move towards, what skills they want to grow, and they facilitate that growth, that can be a huge win-win scenario. And so it's really important to kind of develop talent of employees, and to develop talent that is important to them. So we know that we can learn better, we work harder when something is important to us, and we have a natural interest in it. And if we're just kind of being forced to do something that's outside, our natural range of interest, it might not actually be as useful as if we were doing something that was more naturally inclined to our own personalities. And the last is N, and that is to be natural and honest about human factors of imperfection. And so a lot of times managers or CEOs will often feel like they need to appear really perfect to the entire organization. And that creates a lot of distance between that person and employees. And even employees, they feel like they need to be perfect at work. It often feels like you can't show any vulnerability to your coworkers, because then they might think that, you're not a good worker or you aren't working hard enough. We know a lot of people will go into the office and kind of, really talk about how hard they work, how hard everything is, how little sleep they got, how many emails they got. And that's really, kind of trying to like win an arms race of pain. And it's just not really useful to kind of do that type of one-upmanship in how hard you work. What would be more useful to people and to establishing trust and establishing an organization that's more productive and happy is for people to actually show vulnerability, and to actually kind of treat each other as the imperfect humans we are. And then supporting each other when we show these vulnerabilities, and trying to help each other kind of through the process, and having each other's back. And this really creates some amazing bonds between people. But the issue is that somebody always needs to go first. When it comes to vulnerability, it doesn't come out of nowhere. Someone needs to show vulnerability first, and then others will follow in showing vulnerability. So if you're watching this video, you might consider being that brave person that kind of shows that vulnerability first. And so this comes to one of the most important takeaways from this book, is that trust begets trust. And the only way we can really start building trust and establishing trust in an organization, in our work, in our groups, is for somebody to go first, to be the person that does something that is worthy of trust. And that takes courage. It takes, somebody taking that first step of reaching out to another person without knowing that their action will be reciprocated. But the thing is about us humans is that oftentimes I think like 95% of the time we will reciprocate that trustworthy action. So if you want to kind of establish an organization and kind of change the culture of your workplace, it can start on that individual level in which one person goes first. If you do have a job in which you are unengaged in, know that it is not you. A lot of the type of corporate structures we have now, the way our organizations are structured, are not conducive to optimal psychological health. And luckily there is a lot of work coming out, and work by individuals such as Paul Zak, which show us how to create better organizations and better environments that facilitate optimal psychological health for people, to make them happy at work and fulfilled. But this work has not reached all the organizations yet. As we know, science moves slowly. A lot of the things that we can do on an individual level are impactful, and that you are able to create small changes that could have really big effects. And if you are a manager, then you could actually take some of these policies, some of these principles from the oxytocin model, and create massive effects in your organization, and then reap so many benefits from having happier, more engaged employees, which is amazing, because who wouldn't want to make people happy and also make their business more profitable, right? I hope that this was helpful, and I will see you guys next week with another video.